That background noise is a Magnus Electric Chord Organ breathing. You're going to get to hear it in just a little bit. Stick around. Hi, this is Ted Barsley with Alamo Piano Galleries. If you haven't already, please subscribe to the channel. If you have any questions or comments, go ahead and list them down there. And also, please take a look at our inventory at alamopianogalleries.com. This is not in our inventory. It's here for demonstration. This is a Magnus Electric Chord Organ. It's fascinating because I wanted to use this as a point of discussion and a takeoff point for conversation regarding music theory. Interesting point, it's got 6 chords, they're all major. B flat, F, C, and then the lower rank it has A, D, and G. Very similar arrangement like you would find on an accordion. And they're just built around the circle of fourths, but there are some chords missing, there's no minor chords. This 25-note keyboard will allow you to learn how to make those same chords. So like if you played an A, so there's obviously separate reeds over here because you could hear there's just a tad bit out of tune. Let's try the D. It's just a nice little wavering there on the unisons. Now, I had one that was a bit of a stand-up. It was a little bit bigger. I think it may have been a 37-note, and it actually came with like sides that would raise it up to a height of like a keyboard. It was gifted to me by my mother's uncle, and I brought it home. And I thought it was kind of cool how the buttons actually played 3 notes. And then just by pressing the buttons and following a chord organ book, you could play a song just by pushing a button. It's a lot kind of like those, what do they call those? I'm at a loss for a name, but those chord strum things, they have 25, 27, 37 strings. Auto harp. Auto harps have the chord names written right on the buttons. That's the same thing as what you have with these Magnus organs. And they only had the one sound. But it is polyphonic, and it's based on wind blowing across and through the reeds. And so if you play a whole lot of notes where the volume gets down, you can tell it's having a hard time producing enough air. A lot of times that's part of the sound on accordion playing, but on an organ, you can't really control the loud and the soft. If it's like a reed organ, it just kind of makes the sound that it makes. What I found fascinating about this when I was 11 or 12 years old and I had access to a Magnus chord organ, very similar to this one, is that it led me to start investigating more about just reading notes off of a page. Up until that point, I had been playing piano, just taking the instructions and playing them, not even thinking about what patterns, what scales, what key. Oh, you know what key it's in based on a number of sharps or flats, but I wasn't playing tons of sophisticated pieces. But at the same time, I wanted to learn more about chords because people that played guitar, and I had already started to play guitar, you played chords. I never really sat down and learned chords on a piano. The Magnus chord organ was actually my first introduction, and then after a while I learned how to play chords, mostly in the bass with my left hand. And instead of playing them at once, I would break them up. So I could start keeping in time. And then moving that pattern up, I started learning that every chord follows the pattern like a scale. And you're getting some of the similar, usually when a song is in F, you're going to have chords like B flat and C go along with it. If it's in G, you might get a D and a C, but maybe not an A unless it's an A, D, G. So there's enough of combination. You get the 3 major chords you can make with all white keys on here, and you can make 2 of the white, black, white, A and D chords. So it gives you enough to where you can find the notes that are inside the chords based on just pressing the chord button. That's how I started, and then I started learning. What reminded me is when I we talked about doing this Magnus Chord Organ video today is what first came to mind in my mind was Saturday in the Park, and it's a strange analogy because there's no organ in that song. But here's the reason why. It's one of the first songs I went out and found the sheet music to after I first heard it and wanted to learn how to play it. And it was difficult because the entire piano part is written right between the treble clef and the bass clef, and it's all written in ledger lines. It would have been real easy if they just used one and wrote it in two staves, so you could read it easier that way. And at least I thought you could recognize the chords. And it's just variations on an A minor seventh, but it's the way that it moves. And when you're reading it and you literally have to take each note by note, it takes a little bit to decipher. You can't play it on the chords that come with the chord organ, but you can get kind of close to fooling around if you had minor chords on there. The larger the organ, the more number of keys and the more number of chords they would give you. The larger ones actually come with minor chords. And this arrangement of circle of fourths is very, very similar, if not exactly, to what you find on the pattern and the arrangement of harmonica reeds that are set up inside of an accordion. And even the keyboard accordions have bass buttons and chord buttons on the left side. Not everyone uses them though. And I wish I could sit down here and give you a great demonstration, but this is a Magnus Chord Organ. I was fortunate enough to find this in, of all places, a nonprofit, the Goodwill store, and it was marked perfectly. It was right under $20, and I thought it would look great on our shelf as a display item. It's a great thing to talk about. It is an instigator of someone's personal search for music theory because it lays it right out there. It gives you 6 buttons that actually play, 3 notes each, as opposed to having to use 3 fingers to play a chord. You can play 1-fingered button. It's a lot like what you see transferred from this layout of the Magnus Chord Organ is a lot like the current keyboard layouts that you would find on clavinovas, on PSRs, the portable lines from Yamaha, also Kawai. It's a 1-button chording. It's the same concept of the 1 buttons. When you play the B flat, it plays the B flat major. You play the F, it plays the F major. There's now a button where you could go in, if you could imagine this, and click it, and it would play fingered chords. So you could play a diminished chord, and it would play the diminished chord instead of trying to play 3 major chords off of those notes. So you can actually play 2 and 3 or 4 note chords will actually come out on the new keyboards. But back then they were just pre-made, and they're still pre-made on an accordion. And with that, I guess that's about as much as I can say about a $20 Magnus Electric Chord Organ. And I'll give you a little bit of what was probably the main thing that was played on these chord organs would be whoops, it's harder upside down. Well, you get the idea anyway. Have a great weekend. Have a good time. We'll see you next time. Maybe we'll have something a little more exciting than an electric Magnus Chord Organ. Thank you so much. I am Ted Barslew with Alamo Piano Galleries, and I appreciate your attention.